Hi there, and welcome to a short tutorial about writing great letters of recommendation for students who are bound for USA universities and colleges. Hopefully this can serve as a little re-inspiration or new inspiration to those veterans who've been writing great letters for years, and for those of you who are new to the Letter Writing Club, welcome, and I hope this can help lay some foundational information to help you move through the process. The college application to any U.S. institution has two main categories. One, those elements that are really objective in nature, which include a student's curriculum and the grades in those courses that they're taking, their standardized tests. A school report that I provide is the counselor, which helps contextualize what is available at our school, as well as how a student fits into the context of their particular class. And also an activities list that is self-reported by students, which helps universities and colleges understand what students do with their free time when they're not studying or sleeping. As you might imagine, even in the most selective institutions, the objective elements of the applicant pool are really, really quite similar and are actually not differentiating at all. At the most elite institutions, students are challenging the most college preparatory curriculum and being rather successful at that as well. The narrative elements of the application, especially to the elite institution, is really, really what makes the difference. It's when the student comes alive. It's when their performance and their potential in the classroom can be nuanced and can be grounded in stories. Narrative elements may include interviews, which are not available widely across many schools. Most schools require a letter of recommendation from me, the counselor, one or more teachers from core academic classes, and ask students to reflect in one or more essays. This is really the stuff of college admissions, and for those of you who are helping students reach to highly selective institutions, your letter gains more and more importance, whether that school is more and more selective. Your letter could say a variety of things, and I'm here today to help you understand how it is you might best spend your time in order to best help all the students you really want to help move on to the next level. What your letter should really, really focus on are the intangibles. Again, thinking about what they will already know. They will already know the IB curriculum, the courses a student has taken, the grades in those courses, standardized test scores. Those things should really in no way be reiterated. It's about accessing something really new and something that is really only stories and qualities that our teachers are really privy to based on your tremendous contact time in the classroom. I've identified there are a variety of intangibles you might also address. In this slide, I've actually highlighted those that universities tell me they want to see in their applicant pool. So this is, again, a big part of my external relations work with colleges every year is to ask them what it is they want the letters to help them understand. Over the years, they say letters of recommendation are often the least helpful. They're never hurtful or negative. A teacher is never going to write something overtly critical, but they are often too generic to provide any new information to move a student's application forward. So the intangibles that universities tell me they are really curious about is whether a student is engaged with a variety of things, ideas, people in the classroom, their peers, their teachers, and with the school community and the community at large. They are very interested in having you elaborate on how they are taking advantage and putting their abilities and talents to use. Most importantly, I think in all letters, and very importantly for students of high ability, is that you can help them understand what a student does when they are challenged. Have they been challenged in your class, especially for that student has been given an A? What has challenged them, and what have they brought to the table beyond studying more? Universities are interested in students who think beyond really themselves, their ego, their transcript, and using their passions and intellect and abilities to make a difference. Super interested in creativity, curiosity, and collaboration. This is the idea that, do you have a sense that the student is going beyond the syllabus? Is this something they can do kind of through instruction, kind of call and response? You've given them an assignment, they do it to a high level, but do you have a sense that the student is using information creatively, is so engaged with the content that at some level they need to make it their own, that they are interested in maybe building bridges among their own peers or other classes to move the agenda forward in your class? And then finally, this idea of openness to opportunities is this notion of innovation. How are they helping you or your class kind of reinvent the curriculum that you might have intended, but are it's somehow evolving very organically in the class based on the kids who are there? So intangibles. You can use these words, and they only count if you can provide a specific story to help someone believe you that the student has these qualities. If your letter reveals exceptional stories, with evidence, meaning a story can apply only to that particular student, the letter can do the following things: really bring the student to life, contextualize the performance in this particular cohort across your entire career, really verify strengths, identify areas for growth for sure. I think they are looking for students to become human through your letters and not be squeaky clean. And provide some insight into this life of the mind and the potential to thrive in a university setting, certainly with regards to challenge. How are they gritty and resilient, and how will they take ownership over their learning, which happens in a U.S. institution well beyond the constructs of a traditional high school? And finally, you are signing this letter with your name, putting your integrity on the line, and you're building a relationship between Nido and the institution. With many U.S. institutions, Nido does have a long and trusted relationship, and so they are looking for you, teachers, to share honest knowledge with them year after year. One last thing is that your letter does need to provide laser focus, a very specific light, a spotlight perhaps, on a student's academic performance and potential in your discipline. I also write a letter for the application which serves as a floodlight to share with them the arc of a student's experience. Don't worry about presenting the student as well-rounded or successful across the board. How are they effective, successful, talented in your particular area? If you have had a significant advisory experience with a student through clubs, you might mention that, but only if it in fact nuances a student further than what you've already done for them, discussing them as a student of yours. And again, stories are super important. They will have known they're a member, for example, of an athletic team or an honor society or a service organization. If you feel that you can tell a specific story to nuance their character further, only add it then. But if in fact you would like to do that, that would be no more than, let's say, 20% of your letter. 80% of your letter needs to be focused on academics. Okay, how do you find these stories? Stories are just essential. Otherwise, it's hyperbole, it's it's adjectives, and this letter could apply to many high-achieving, capable, outgoing, involved students that you may have interacted with over the course of your career, and it will sound utterly familiar to the admissions officer who is reading hundreds, if not thousands, of files per year. But I know that you do all this letter writing in your free time at night on the weekends, and it is very difficult to start with a clean screen. It's very tempting to possibly start with a boilerplate or template, and I'm going to ask that you also avoid that because admissions officers across most institutions read by territory, which means that they have all the NITO applications in front of them, and they are reading student essays, looking at transcripts, and reading letters of recommendation all at the same time. So you might be supporting a student to an elite institution, let's say, and your letter needs to be original for that particular student because they will clearly see cutting and pasting, boilerplating, and templating, which doesn't help the student and maybe reduces the value with which they will view your letters this year or maybe even next year. What I'm going to suggest is that students need to do the heavy lifting in this task of finding evidence. It's really important that students reflect on who they are as students, what they've brought to the table. Sometimes it's a really important aha moment to think like, wow, I'm successful in this class, but I'm actually not sure why. It's really time they start to get a handle on that, as they will take a great deal of ownership over their education in college. And these observations, conclusions, these self-reflections will help them choose the college that will be a best fit for them. I actually ask all students to complete a questionnaire. That is not a questionnaire of random questions. Actually, these questions reflect exactly what students or universities say they would like to know. It's asking students about their best work in your class, the proudest moment in your class, what has challenged them in your class, and what they have done to quote unquote, overcome that. How do they work with their peers? How do they demonstrate innovation, curiosity, collaboration? How have they exhibited growth over the course of time in your class? I promise you they're going to help reveal something that probably you were not aware of. This is super important, one, because it helps provide juicy stories and insights to you that you might not have otherwise known. It allows students to self-reflect, which I believe is the whole point of the college application process. And it helps you understand actually the student's strategy and theme that they have been developing with me over time. Especially when a student is asking a teacher to write a letter of recommendation for them from similar disciplines, two in the humanities, two in the one from math and one from science. That's really fine and is allowed by nearly all colleges. However, together, the student and I have, and through their self-reflection, they have decided how they would like to steer you thematically in terms of providing evidence that might avoid redundancy, so that both humanities teachers don't only identify them as a strong writer or as an analytical thinker or as a strong contributor to discussion. Really, only one teacher needs to say that. You might reference that or provide something that's complementary, but you need to develop something that is new, even though it's in the same discipline in a class that maybe requires and cultivates the similar skills. So questionnaires that students complete on their own not only share their stories, which may have been private up until this point, or something that slipped your mind or you were not aware of, it allows them also to direct you to a strategic theme that they have asked you to develop. I know also some of you have used questionnaires in the past that you have created to support your letter writing. Terrific. I'd ask for you to maybe consider questions that I have asked and add those to yours in the future, only because I do want your responses, the stories, the intangibles to be current, in that I'm not making this up. I always ask universities what it is that they want to know. Not in any way that letters need to be formulaic, but again, out of the whole universe of things you could possibly choose to say, what's the most helpful in allowing them to differentiate this student from all others who academically and even extracurricularly look quite similar? I've been using this questionnaire, this kind of questionnaire in my work for many years now, and I'd like to share with you an example from a faculty who taught a TOK class at my previous school in the States, and how he used a reflection to provide evidence in his letter. If students provide deep reflection, it's often possible to use their voice, to incorporate their own words into your letter, which is like the best of all possible worlds. Do a little bit of reading here. A TOK faculty used student responses to a questionnaire that they submitted to him in this way. This gentleman was college faculty for many decades, actually, and then came to the high school side at the end of his career. Very familiar with college level work, college applications, and things, and he incorporated reflections in this way. He begins with his voice. As a student in theory of knowledge, I can honestly say that the environment of the entire class would have been different without Cormac's presence. He was consistently a leader in discussion, and more than simply a vocal, spirited participant, Cormac raised the level of ideas discussed, applying both critical and creative thinking to the ideas he develops, and sophistication in his ability to recognize their interconnectedness of ideas. That introduction actually sounds like it could apply to a variety of students, couldn't it? So let's get more specific. Here he goes. Constantly, he frames his thoughts in terms of topics under study in other courses, within current events, or applicable from his own and constant study of politics in government. That's Cormac in a nutshell. Total MUN, total debate kid, total poli-sci. So he really nailed it with that example there. In a questionnaire meant to facilitate my ability to write this letter, I found it importantly revealing when Cormac shared his most meaningful moment in TOK in this way. Now here is where he engages the student's voice, actually cutting and pasting a response from the written reflection from his student questionnaire. So Cormac is speaking here. My most meaningful moment in this class occurred when discussing the ethics of the Steubenville rape case. As I engaged in a spirited discussion, strongly defending my points as I always do, I realized I might be wrong, and I started reevaluating. I realized that maybe there was a responsibility to prevent harm to others, even if it involved personal risk. It was one of the most meaningful discussions I have ever had because it showed me that through argument, one could achieve the truth rather than simply have two viewpoints clash. It shifted the way that I approach theory of knowledge, and it led me to also want to listen more in discussions. Not that it has stopped me from still constantly interjecting my thoughts. So now I'll quickly flip back to Mark's voice as he follows Cormac's reflections in his own words with this. This growing maturity in appreciating the views of others, an increasing ability to listen to nuance, and the very atypical ability to challenge an opinion he thought had been carefully reasoned on his part. These traits offer testimony to the growth I have witnessed over 2 years with Cormac. Beautiful. Totally amazing. What I loved about this is that Mark wanted to make some observations and claims about a student that we could make about others that we have worked with for sure. But because he cut and pasted Cormac's own thoughts, it is 100% believable. It is 100% specific. But what I love about the opportunity to use a student's words is that in the letter of recommendation, you got the bonus of actually getting to get a feel for the student themselves. Hopefully you might have gotten a sense that Cormac likes to be right. Cormac thinks he's smart. Cormac has a very big ego. And it was somewhat charming and believable that in fact he had a moment of growth that he shared with his teacher, and that his teacher wanted to basically honor, saying Cormac couldn't have said it, Cormac says it best himself, and I'm going to honor that. So that's what's super powerful about questionnaires. So I hope that when students share their reflections with you, you get something this meaningful, this insightful. My only request to you is that you don't let students get off the hook with making a letter of recommendation request, assuming you're going to do all the heavy lifting and tell you when the due date is and hope it's good. Please ask them to reflect in some way, using the questionnaire that I provide, using a questionnaire of your own, sitting down and having a one-on-one interview where you're recording some of these thoughts. Something is better than nothing, but it may make letter writing more fun, more satisfying, more specific on your part maybe than you've been able to do in the past. So hopefully you'll get some excellent inspirations and great examples of bringing the student voice into your letter. Two last things actually. There are some policy considerations I do want to remind you about. You might notice or remember, for those of you who've done it before and will experience for those rookies, that there will be a cover sheet even for common applications, letters of recommendation, as well as university-specific applications, that they might ask you or provide to you a cover sheet that asks you to rate a student or compare this student to others in their class or others in your career based on academic maturity or critical thinking ability, and you'll get to broadly rate them on best in my career or top 15%. That to me really just completely devalues all the effort you put into writing a specific letter for them. These are not required. Per policy, actually, at Nido and most of any other school I've worked at, we ask per policy that we do not provide ratings for our students because they do not serve them well. So ratings, please don't do it. And finally, students have waived their rights to see these letters. Letters are confidential forever. You are writing letters about the students. You are not writing letters to the students. The U.S. government allows students the right to actually view these letters if they so choose, but for these two reasons, I think it would hurt the student to actually engage this particular right. The first thing is that I wonder if your student asks to see the letter first, if it might cause you to be a little less candid, a bit more generic, a bit less risky, in that you are going to do, you won't write anything that anyone, even their parents, might oppose to. And finally, the colleges actually do see that students, the response to this waiving of their rights, and if they see that a student has asked to view their particular letters of recommendation in advance, it will cause them to have a red flag wondering, why would this student need to see the letter in advance? So there is never in my career have I worked with a student who didn't waive their right to see these. So that being said, please do not show the student the letter now. Please do not deliver it to them via email, hard copy, Word document, nothing. We're going to upload this all electronically in another tutorial. And finally, even in graduation, maybe when they return, you may have in the past or might think about wanting to share with the student your letter as a parting gift, as a way to ensure that you did everything you could to support them. These need to remain confidential forever. So please don't plan on delivering your letter of recommendation to the student as a graduation gift, right? So you're writing about them, in support of them. On the flip side of that, if you feel you cannot provide a very strong letter of recommendation, please share with the student that you don't have time this year and that they would be better off finding a different teacher. A very soft decline is... Okay, it's deadline time for the group of students who are going to be applying early to the U.S. with deadlines November 1. A couple of kids have deadlines a little earlier, not many, but most of this first cycle, it's November 1. I would love it if you could have your letters uploaded to Naviance 1 week in advance so that I can review the entire application as it will be sent and process all the documents on my end. To be continued will be a easy to follow Naviance tutorial about how to upload your letters, and then I will do all of the sending. So thanks for listening. Your support of the students is massively important. And I know the massive energy that you commit to this, and I am eternally grateful. And I know the students are too. They may or may not express that as eloquently or in a timely fashion, but thank you in advance. Please use me in any way needed to provide support or direction. I'm trying to get the kids to communicate key information on their own to grow up into this process, but of course they all need help. But we're in this together. I'm writing as well. They're writing, you're writing. This is the voice of the application, and I'm really excited and grateful for all of the work that you're doing in bringing their Nido experience to life. Thanks for listening. You know where my office is. I'm always here to help.